we start these programs by noting that the Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island is a sponsor of Something to Talk About. And they have independent living, assisted living, and memory care up on Rolling Bay. If you'd like to learn more about that, take a tour, or find out about day stay or respite programs, call 360-594-1010. And John Chen is here today to answer some regular questions or some irregular questions, things that come up often regarding tech issues. And before we get to that, I just want to say that we are meeting on the ancestral homeland of the Puget Sound Coast Salish people, specifically the Suquamish tribe, and we are grateful for their care and stewardship of the lands and waters of the Salish Sea since time immemorial. Thank you, John, as always, for consenting to spend a little time with us and answer some questions. I know that you often like to start by seeing if there's anything that anybody is bringing today that they want to have specifically addressed. Otherwise, we can take it from there.
Yeah, if anyone has any kind of questions they want to make sure that I do address, whether the question is related to the topic we're going to talk about, or a question that's totally out on left field. Whatever that question may be, throw it out, and I'll do my best to answer that question. And if I can't, I'll try to find the answer and get the answer back to you. And and if you have any kind of ideas for future sessions, future Zoom sessions, just send an email to if I got it right, info@biseniorcenter.com.
.org.
Okay.
info@biseniorcenter.org.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. As many of you know, that every Monday I spend about a couple hours over at the Senior Center working with individuals who may have specific problems with their devices. And frequently, the same topic will come up over and over and over again. And when those issues comes up, I have an idea that probably a lot of people have similar questions. And three of the very, very common one is passwords. A lot of people get frustrated with passwords. A lot of people get frustrated with the passcode for different websites. And so I want to emphasize and clarify what those passwords are and what you can do to make sure that you don't lose those passwords. And if you do lose the passwords, what can you do to recover them? And two, what do you need to do if you decide to get rid of your device? Whether you want to sell it, you want to discard it, you want to give it to your kids or your neighbor. Depending on what you want to do, you may have different way of ending your life with that device, and also what you may have to do when you want to pick up a brand new device to replace your old one. Just as a show of hands, how many of you have Apple devices versus non-Apple? Apple, let's say Apple, okay. And I may focus this session more on Apple. Okay. Passwords. Different people use the word passwords for different things. And quite often they are very different. First, I want to differentiate the password you use to sign on to your computer or your phone or your tablet. And two, a password with a specific service, meaning an online service. For example, if you buy things on Amazon, you have to sign on to Amazon. And when you do, you have to use your ID and password. And that password is totally different than when you open up your phone or when you wake up your Mac. It comes up and asks you for some kind of passcode. And a lot of people get those things confused, and all they see is a box on your screen that says enter pass something. And many of you will try this password, that password, and they can't keep them separate. I'd like to use, quite often, I like to use a different word from password. When you open up, let's say, a phone, and the first thing it does is ask you for possibly a 3-digit or 4-digit or a 6-digit code, a numeric code. And I prefer to call them a wake-up code, meaning you want to open the door to your Mac, or your phone, and you need a specific key, 3-digit, 4-digit, or 6-digit code to wake it up, to let you in the front door. Once you have done that, if you want to connect, for those of you using Apple devices, you may wish to connect to something that's called iCloud. iCloud is, think of it as an extension, additional memory that is an extension to your device as additional storage. iCloud has its own password, and many people get those two passwords mixed up. And iCloud password is, think of it as a password similar to getting onto Amazon, getting onto any of the other service or BI Senior Center. And for iCloud, that is the key to get into the services iCloud has to offer. So keep them separate. Wake up code is to make you have access to that device, and website or iCloud or internet passwords are specific to that specific service. Okay. Usually when you lose a password, no one can help you. All right. It is your responsibility to keep it in track. And some of you may wish to use a password keeper, a piece of software on your device. You may wish to write it on a sticky note and stick it on the wall someplace, or use a notepad. Whatever method you choose, some are secure, some are not so very secure. Right? And make sure you write down what that password is for. And quite often when I'm working with someone at the senior center, they would say, I can't get onto a certain website or try to do a certain thing. And that thing asks the person some kind of password. They would say, try this password. So I'll try this password number 1. It doesn't work. And then they will say, oh, try this one. It might be this one, or it might be another one. So before you know it, I'm trying 3 or 4 different passwords to get into a specific service, and they're not quite sure which one is for what purpose. That is a dangerous thing. Most services will give you an option to set up a backdoor. The backdoor is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. And think of it as a second way to get into that password. let's say you're trying to get into Amazon, or let's say Google Mail. And if you forget your password, Google can't help you. Apple can't help you. Nobody can really help you. You have to figure it out yourself. So the first thing you do when you have an account someplace is set up an alternate way of getting into it. For example, set up an alternate email address. So the website can send a special 6-digit code or some kind of code to that email address. And you can retrieve that code from that email and you type it into a screen. Now, quite often people will, instead of an email address, that person can also use a phone number. Right? For example, when I want to sign on to my bank, they'll say, I want to double check you or who you say you are. So they're going to send a code to either my email address or my phone. Almost every service, internet service, gives you that way of setting up a backdoor. So if you forget your password, you can say, I forgot my password. And the website will say, all right, do you have an alternate email address that I can send a code to? The email address that you have pre-selected and entered into the website. So what I'm also trying to say is whenever you have an account at any of the services, always set up a secondary email or a phone number. Another way to do it would be most of the websites will have security questions. If you forget your password, you can have the website ask you a security question that you had already selected when you first set up the account. For example, what is your pet's name? Or what is your first car? And when you do that, just remember that you don't have to give a real answer. Let's say they have a pre-canned question, which is, what is the name of your first pet? Well, you don't really have to pick the name of your first pet as an answer. You can say, what? Washington State Ferry is the name of your first pet, right? Versus the real name of your first pet. Because the real name of your first pet, other people can find out what it is. But nobody's going to guess the name of your first pet is Washington State Ferry. You can pick anything you like, but just make sure you remember it. You remember it, maybe in a notepad, preferably in some kind of automated software that's will keep track of your user IDs, your passwords, or secret codes, or whatever it may be. Yes.
I remember, John, recently reading an article about this, and although technology answers like things like 1Password or LastPass have been gaining a lot of interest by people, there's nothing really wrong as long as you keep it in a secure place of a good old-fashioned notebook. And it might, especially for folks who are watching this, it might be a lot easier to manage than trying to figure out how to coordinate one of those software tools. What do you think about that?
I totally agree. It depends on what you think you want to use it for. When you add a piece of software onto your machine that's going to keep track of your ID, password, and etc., there is a learning curve in learning how to use that piece of software. You could use a good old notepad, right? You just have to make sure you keep that notepad secure. Don't write it in things in there that somebody else can grab that notepad and try to figure out how to get to your bank account, for example, right? And keep that thing secure, keep that notepad secure. And a lot of people uses a notepad, a paper notepad. Now, the downside, I've encountered this a number of times. They open up a notepad and they have no idea what that password belongs to. Quite often they will say, oh, try this notepad password. So I'll try it for them. And that doesn't work. They'll flip a few more pages and give me a different password. So if you are going to write it down by hand, make sure you write enough information so you can remember what is this password used for. Is it used for to get to Gmail, or is it used for to get to iCloud or go to your bank? All right. Now, quite often, if you do forget your password and you'll have some kind of a backdoor set up, and that website will send you a recovery email. At that point, if you click on it, that website is going to force you to change the old password. So let's say I have created a password called ABC. Oh, by God, don't pick something so simple as that, but it's great for the discussion here. Let's say I picked a password of ABC and I forget it. So I sign on to the website and they say, all right, you have forgotten what your password is. I'll give you a chance to create a new password because you have already validated to and you are who you say you are. So I pick XYZ. All right. By the way, frequently more and more websites are doing this, which is you cannot pick a password that is the same as the previous password. You have to pick something new. Right? So I picked something new. So now, if I am using a paper notebook, I had ABC written in here, and later I have XYZ written in here. Make sure you document why you're making this change. So you'll remember that ABC is no longer valid. And when you do change to a new password, I would highly recommend that you, after you change it, sign off of the website and sign back on to the website to make sure the new password that you have just created is the correct one. Right. And document it. That is the advantage of a piece of software that's running on your computer, whether the computer be a Mac or a laptop or your phone. That means some piece of software is keeping track. But if you are doing it by hand into a paper notebook, you have to make sure that you can identify what that password is used for. Okay. Yes.
What if you change it and then test it, like you said, but it doesn't work? Does it sometimes take a little time before it does work, or does that mean I did something wrong?
It means that you did something wrong. When you change it, it should work from that second on.
Okay.
Okay, now a hint. Quite often when you are entering a password or a field for you to enter data, and whatever you type doesn't really show up on the screen. It shows up as an X or some kind of symbol. Right? So quite often you have no idea what you're typing in. So let's say I'm typing in XYZ and my fat finger missed a key. At the way on the right-hand end of that field, usually there is a little icon of an eyeball. After you type it in, you click that thing and it will show you what you have typed in English. So that is one way to make sure you are not mistyping a key and enter it. And quite frequently, most websites, if you try it so many times, it will cut you off.
Mhm.
It will stop you from trying again. So, and I have often seen a person whose finger, maybe because their hand is not very steady, all right, and they end up hitting the key next to the one they're trying to hit. And so they type their password, hit the enter key, and it says it's wrong. Right. Maybe they have it right, they just mistyped it. So, does that answer your question?
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, but I do have another question. So if I have to, if I'm, it says, okay, you can choose another password. And often they say, I can make it up, or they make one up for me. Is one more secure than the other? Or, because they often say one capital letter, one special, symbol, and so forth. And sometimes it's kind of fun to make up my own. And I thought I would remember them better, but I'm not so sure. So I've just been going with their strong password suggestion.
Okay. And you are using an Apple device, am I right?
Right.
Okay. And when Apple comes up with that suggestion, usually it's a very, very long password suggestion. Maybe 5-6 characters, followed by a dash, followed by 5-6 more characters, followed by another dash. And it's somewhere around 16-18 characters long. I would highly recommend that you use them. Okay. Now, trying to remember it, that's a separate thing if you are using a paper notepad, because the password it creates is very long, uppercase, lowercase, special characters, and etc. When you are having Apple create that long password, Apple is remembering it for you in a piece of software that comes on your device. And that is what Apple calls a keychain. Right? The advantage of that keychain is that you don't have to know what it is. If you have more than one device, like you have a Mac, you have a phone, you have a tablet, and they're all set up correctly, that keychain goes from one device to the next device to the next device. So once you have used a password and keychain is tracking it for you, you can now use any of your devices to sign on to that website without having to remember what that password is. Now, a key thing when you have keychain to remember what your passwords are is your wake up password, wake up pin. When you open up your Mac, it's going to have a little window and says what is the password or passcode. Apple uses the word passcode. Make sure you pick a complex one, because that is the front door getting into your device. If you pick something simple like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that means someone else can pick that same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, get into your device, and once they get into your device, they can get into the keychain. So if you have a device that can support fingerprint reader, or it can support a facial recognition, by all means, use it and set it up. and try not to use the simple 6-digit code to get into your device. If you have facial recognition, always use facial recognition, because you could be in a grocery store and you want to get into your phone and you are sitting there typing in that 6-digit code. The person standing next to you can watch what you're typing, and that person can grab your phone. Once they grab your phone, once they know your wake-up code to that phone, they can type it in and they can get to your keychain, which contains all of your passwords. So if you have a piece of equipment that can read your fingerprint, read your face, by all means, use it. Okay. All right. Yes. Yes, Reed.
So I have one more question about these passwords and everything and facial recognition. What if I become incapacitated and somebody else is going to have to get into my stuff to figure out what the heck's going on? What's a good, I mean, obviously they aren't going to be able to use my facial password to get into my iPhone. So I need to have somewhere that I can save all these passwords and so forth for them, right?
Yes. That is when your 6-digit wake-up code will come in handy. All right. And just remember that if you have facial recognition or fingerprint reader on your device, that doesn't preclude anybody from using that 6-digit code. You just don't want to use it and have other people watch you use it. So you can have that 6-digit code sitting in the vault, in a safe at home, which you can pass on to someone else if you become disabled, incapacitated. So that is one way to get into your device. Now, just remember, on many devices like a phone, iPhone, if you have a fingerprint reader or a facial recognition set up, if you happen to reboot that device, meaning shut it down, start it back up, it is going to ask for that 6-digit code. So you can't set up a 6-digit code and totally forget it. You are going to be forced to use it every once in a while. Okay. Does that answer your question, Reed? Okay. What do you have to do before you sell a device or trade a device in or throw it away by recycling it? And that really applies to Apple, Android, Google, any kind of or Windows computer. For most users, that phone, it's hard to imagine 20 years ago us saying everybody has an iPhone, everybody has a phone number. Right. But that's a reality now, and we do. So that phone, think of that phone as the front door to your whole digital life. Right. You access your bank on it, you buy stuff with it, and you have your calendar in it, you have your your friend's phone number, friend's address, almost all of your photos, your memories, everything is keyed on that phone. And if you have a tablet connected to it, if you have a Mac connected to it, or a Windows machine connected to it, really that phone is very critical to your digital life. So if you want to get rid of it, you may think, okay, we'll just give it take that phone and give it to my kid or my friend. Before you give it away, first of all, you have to try to think about what you're going to do with that phone. You're ready to switch from your old phone to a new phone. That phone has so many things connected to it, other than what I have just mentioned. Do you have a hearing aid? Many of us at our age wear a hearing aid. My hearing aid is connected to my phone. My wife's headphone for listening to music, it's connected to her phone. Right? How about, let's see, what else do I have in here? If any of you have a watch, a digital watch that's connected to a phone, that phone and your watch they're also connected. If you have a tracking device, like for Apple, there's the AirTag, that is also connected to your phone. In reality, it's not connected to your phone. It's connected to your Apple ID, but you get to it through your phone. So if you take an iPhone, you just decide that, okay, I'm done with it. It's old. I want to get a new one. Before you actually give it away, you have to make sure you remove all of those connections from your phone. Right? You can go into certain settings in your settings app and start disconnecting things. And one of the critical items in setting is something called Find My. Right? It's a weird name because it sort of ends in mid-sentence, but Apple calls it FIND space MY. That's it, Find My. Every phone you can set up an option where that phone is tracked by your Apple ID. Right? That is the Apple ID is your account with Apple. So that Apple ID remembers all of your devices. So you have a phone that's connected to that Apple ID. And anytime if you lose that phone or you misplace that phone, you can go to Apple with your Apple ID and say, find my phone, or find my Mac, or find my tablet. And you can have that device beep so you can look for it. Maybe it's under the couch cushions, or maybe you left it at a grocery store. It's called Find My. Now, Find My remembers a lot of things about that device, including the serial number. So if you have a phone, you decide to give it away, you erase that phone, and then you give it away, that serial number is still tied to your ID. All right, now let's take this one step further. Most phones, you can trade it in for a new one. Obviously, it's like taking a car, trading it in. Before you buy a new phone, it will say, do you have an old phone you want to trade in? Yeah, I do. You can find out how much your old phone is worth. And let's say you're switching from an iPhone 8 to iPhone 13, and when you make that change, you will send your old phone in after you get your 13 and get that new phone started. You can send the old phone in to get some kind of money, a certain amount of money. That phone, even if you erase it, still belongs to you if you still have not disabled the Find My option on that phone. So when you take this phone, you send it in for a trade-in, the trade-in company will not be able to use it and resell it to anyone else because that phone still belongs to you. That also means you are not going to get your trade-in money. So what you want to do is go into a settings and say, take this phone off of my account. That means the second you do that, that phone is now available for another person to set up with their own account. Every phone is, or your Mac or your tablet belongs to a single Apple ID. Did I explain that enough? What questions do you have about that? Okay. Yes.
Okay, the last time, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
The last time I traded in my phone, I went to a store, so it's quite trustworthy to have them do all this, or is it better to do it myself if I can?
I would suggest if you do it in person at a store, do it yourself. All right. And it's very simple to do. You just go into settings, go into Find My, and you just turn a little slider from the green to remove the green.
Okay,
And when you buy a new phone, make sure the first thing you do is turn on the Find My. So now that phone belongs to you. Yes, Gary.
So just to supplement everything you said, which is exactly right, I put a link in the chat for the support technical article on Apple's website that says if you're going to get rid of your iPhone, here's the things you need to do, and it walks you through there's like 10 steps that you may need to do, but everything you said and more is in there. So if you didn't want to write everything down that John said or whatever, or try to remember it all, you can follow that article and it should be pretty up to date with everything you need to do.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. So you can follow that link, and in fact, I also have a link over at apple.com. And I was going to suggest that if anybody are interested, we can send you that link. But looks like Gary already provided for you. So
Sorry.
that's great. Terrific. All right. Now let's say you have gone out, bought a new device, a new iPhone. Let's say you have an iPhone, you switch to a new iPhone. I'm not even going to address the issue of switching from Android to iPhone, or vice versa if you're switching from iPhone to Android. For most people, that is going to be a nightmare. It's a lot of work. Right? And all right, let's say you are buying a new iPhone. And the first thing you want to do is, quite often, is turn it on and start using it. Well, you have to remember your old phone contains your whole digital life. And you want to take the content of that old phone and move it over to the new phone before you start throwing that old phone away. Otherwise, you don't want to start from scratch on this new phone. Now, one time I heard from person I know. I said, we happen to be talking about phones. He says, yeah, I have a phone, and when this phone gets full, I'm not sure what that means, but when that person said, when this phone gets full, I just buy a new phone. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you are going to lose all of your pictures? The thing that's making your old phone full are usually photos, videos, all the conversation you have had with other people. This new phone, when you first get it, contains nothing from your old phone. So you want to get all the info from your old phone to the new phone. Now, first thing you want to do when you want to get the information from the old phone to the new phone. Remember what I said about your Apple ID? Think of it as an added memory with Apple. The Apple will keep track of it for you. Well, you take your old phone, back it up onto iCloud. And by the way, your phone should already be doing that every day anyway. And there is a way you can check on your phone to say, is my phone being backed up? Right? But that's a separate issue. By the way, it's also in an app on your phone called Settings. It's in there. And if you go into Settings, there is a search field. Type in the word backup. It will take you to a page within Settings that talks about backup. Okay, let's assume your old phone has been backing up. Right after you buy this new phone, which is blank, you want to make sure you have the most current backup. And if not, for going to the backup page on your old phone and say, back it up. Once that happens, then you can use your new phone and proceed setting it up. And then you can say, retrieve from my account the old phone's content. That's the way it used to be done. And when I recently, over a year ago, I switched from iPhone 10 to iPhone 14. They do it differently now, which also says they keep on improving the way you do it. The new way is very nice. I love it. You just sort of have to give up control. You have an old phone, you have a new phone. The first thing you do, make sure both phones contains the most up-to-date operating system. You may think, well, I just bought this phone. It should be updated. Well, usually when a phone comes out, within the next 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, they will discover certain improvements they need to make on the new phone. Right. And so whenever you buy a new phone, first thing you do is get the software updated. Once you have the two phones next to each other, the second you put the two phones close to each other, they will know about it. And I've only done this twice, because once was with my wife's phone, the second time was with my phone. Let's see. Where is it? Okay. You take both phones, old and the new, put them on the charger, put them next to each other. When you put them next to each other, the new phone is going to ask you, do you want me to start the transfer? And if you say yes, and the old phone would say, are you using this phone? And yes, and these two phones will talk to each other. And you will end up going through maybe a 2-hour process, maybe longer, maybe shorter, depending how much stuff you have on your phone. During this process, it will ask you to set up your Face ID, set up your country, what your language is, English or any other language. And these two phones will essentially talk to each other and transfer the information from the old to the new. Now, last time I did it with mine, it took about 3 hours. Mainly because I had a couple of restarts. I screwed up, and so I had to essentially start from scratch. All of your apps will get transferred, all of your data, your contact, your photos, your messages, and your wallet. Now, iPhone has something called wallet. It contains what your leather wallet normally contains, with a few exceptions. This wallet is what you also use to buy things at the store. And did I hear a noise?
Spots. We're hearing it in all of our different spots.
Okay. All right, that threw me off. It's because I wear hearing aid. I wasn't sure if my hearing aid was making funny noises, but
Oh, I think you were talking about shopping with the wallet.
yeah, shopping with the wallet. One of the things that you want to make sure to remove from your old phone is your wallet. All right. I have my credit cards in there. I have my flight information for airline tickets in there. I have my health shots, COVID shot information in there. And that information also gets transferred to the new phone. And remember earlier I said a lot of your life is on that old phone, and you have to make sure to disconnect it, like your hearing aid, your AirPods, your watch, your what are some of the other things I said? Whatever. You also have to,
Tickets, whatever.
yeah, Find My. Also disconnect that thing. And you have to remove your wallet. Right? Now, if you have an iPhone, specifically iPhone, because I don't know how Android works, if you have an iPhone, it will automatically transfer the information from your old phone to the new phone. But it does not take it away from your old phone. So when I said transfer, it's not moving things from here to here. It's copying, making the new phone pretty much a duplicate of the old phone. So once that process is done, then you're free to take the old phone, go through what we talked about of removing all the critical information from here. Before you do that, you now have a new phone with all of your old phone's content. Make sure everything is in there. You can go spot check your contact list, your calendar. If you open up your new calendar, it has nothing in it. That means you don't want to totally wipe out your old device yet. You need to fix that. If you find you're missing certain contacts, your friend's phone number, etc., double check, meaning spot check. And if you're looking at buying a new phone now, because the new Apple is going to be coming out with some new devices, by the way, that's also going to be the most expensive time for you to buy that new device, which is right after it comes out. If you are looking at buying a new device, before you do any of this transfer, go to the vendor's or manufacturer's website to double check out how you're supposed to do it, because they may have changed it, they may have improved it, they may improve it in a way that you may not like. So double check to make sure that this is what you want to do, is have the vendor software automatically do the transfer and go from there. So before you do any kind of change, always go to the manufacturer's website. For Apple, go to apple.com and do a search on what you're supposed to do when you have a new phone and you want to transfer data from the old phone. And most of all, don't do this right before you take a trip. All right. Live with it for a week or two to make sure that everything works the way you expect it to. So, on the old phone, there are a couple other things you need to take out of your old iPhone. One of them is a SIM card, which is your phone number. Make sure you take it out of your old phone. For Android devices, you may have memory card inside of the Android phone. You may want to make sure to essentially remove that. Now once all the data has been transferred from the old to the new, you now want to take the old device, clean it up, so you can get the most money you can out of that old device. Right? And you may want to clean with damp cloth with soap, or use alcohol to clean it, or eyeglasses cleaner to clean it. Get rid of all the food particle that's sitting on the phone and fingerprints, and try to polish it up, because the cleaner you make it, the better shape it's in, the more money you're going to get. And then you can package it up and send it back to get it recycled, or get some kind of trade-in, or discard it. So what questions do you have? Yes.
Okay, I'm definitely ready to change. I looked at the price. My service is Cricket Wireless. I can get a new iPhone 14 through them, but it's $1,000. And it made me wonder, what's the best marketplace for new phones when you want to replace a phone? Is it just to go back? Is your service provider the best? I haven't done a search, so I'm not sure where else I should go or could go.
So to make sure I understand, you currently have a Cricket phone.
Yes.
And it's an iPhone?
It's an iPhone 13.
Okay. And you can get an iPhone 14 through Cricket.
Through Cricket.
And did you say it's going to cost you how much to do that?
Now about $999.
Okay. For your specific case, going from a 13 to a 14 is not that much of a change. Right? The two devices, they're not that different. They're only a year apart. Some of maybe the camera has slightly improved. And is it worth, for me, is it worth $1,000 to go from 13 to 14? Personally, for myself, I would not make that change.
Well, my 13 is at end of life. I need a new phone.
Okay.
So, what would be the best way to go when I want to replace it? If the screen is broken, the battery needs to be replaced.
Oh, the screen is broken.
Yeah, I've managed to break the screen. So I mean, the phone needs to be replaced.
Okay. If you do have a situation where the phone is damaged, yes, you can. That's a tough one because because that is around $900 is a normal price for a iPhone 14 P or Pro device.
Oh, yeah, this was a Pro, price of a Pro.
And it is not a large screen. It's not a huge screen. I would think you will want to wait for maybe a week to two, because next week Apple's going to come out with an announcement for Apple iPhone 15.
Mm.
The second they do that, the prior year devices will drop
Go down.
by
Perfect. Okay,
maybe
thank you.
If you want, if you have a 13, it will be just as good a deal if you go from your current 13 to another 13,
Mhm.
which will be even less expensive than a 14. Again, 13, 14, there really isn't a lot of difference.
They were giving 13 at $730, so it wasn't a.
And I would say going to a 13 will be just as good a deal.
Mhm.
Now, there may be some specific things about a 14 that you think is attractive, that you would like. And you sort of have to really think about what those things are to see if it's worth the extra $300.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. I think we've used up an hour of time and learned a lot.